Hello there and welcome to the first instalment of a Kingdom Come 2 Deliverance modding tutorial series that will be starting on the channel here. My name's Casey, if you don't know me from the Discord communities already. These series will be starting off here. It's going to be a number of initially smaller videos designed to show you the very basics of how to get started with modding the game. And then as we go along, we'll end up expanding it and making it more complex. So that's something you're interested in learning, then please do stick along and watch these videos. For this first episode, we'll be going over the very essentials, just downloading the relevant tools, their basic setup, so that you understand what you need, why you need them, and then further videos will go into how you actually then use those. So without further ado, we'll swap over to the first tool you're going to need to use. Okay, so the first tool you're going to want to get started is going to be the official tools from Warhorse themselves. The tools include stuff like the editor for making map contents, testing stuff out and load the game all the time, and just various other core tools you're going to require to do much with the game. So in order to get those, what you want to do, you want to go into your Steam library, and you have to search for here. As long as you own the base game, you will have this in your library to use as well. So the way to find it is on your Steam library. First things first, on the top left here above the search bar, you make sure where it might say games or have some other options on here, you need to make sure you tick the tools option. If you don't have this, it won't show up. So I'm going to do that. Then all you need to do is type in Kingdom Come, and one of the options on this now should be under the tools section, Kingdom Come Deliverance 2 modding tools. So that's what you're looking for. You want to click on that. And then like any other tool or game on Steam, you want to click on it, and you should have the installation option here if you haven't already got it installed. So you want to go to that and click the install, and then as you would anything else, just run that through, decide where you want to put it, and then let it install, and you also just check it in there down to see when it's done. The main thing to be aware of when you're doing this is try not to put it in a folder path that's a bit too long. There are certain tools in here that are a bit fussy about how long the file path can be, so I would say try to stick to within your Steam library and your C or D drive, something like that. Don't go 10 folders deep or it might break some of the tools. But other than that, nothing else too much to worry about. So just run that installation. Once you've got that done, what you should have in your Steam library, wherever you've installed it, is a folder called KCD2 mod in here. So this is the official mod tools that the directory will go into. So in here now, you can see that a lot of the setup, to be honest, is mostly the same as the base game file structure. There's a couple of differences, like you'll see the tools folder there, which has a bunch of the core tools you're going to want to use for modding in there. And then there's a couple of bits in here for special or development versions of the release that work a bit better for what we want to do. So now you've got that first bit installed, we have to just do a quick bit of setup here just to make sure we've got everything. Because what you'll notice at the moment, if you go into the data folder, is you will pretty much have nothing in here. You won't even have those files, you'll just have a blank data folder. So you need to set it up so the game, so the development tools will pull the base game files and put them in here for you correctly, so you can work with the tools. So in order to do that, what you want to do, go out to KC2 mod, go into the tools folder, and then in here now you're looking for a folder called modding workspace setup. We go into that, and right at the bottom of this list, you should see an exe here called workspace setup exe. So what you want to do is right click on that and run it as admin. Make sure you do that. If you don't, it may fail to do the system link process we're going to be trying to do here. It does require that the developers say that as well. If you can't run it as admin for any reason, you may have to just copy your data files manually for this to work correctly. But I'm just going to go on here, I'm going to run this as administrator. It's going to prompt me to say I'm sure, I'll put yes on that. It will pop up in a moment with an exe. Basically, what this is now saying is, am I sure I want to do this? Here's the tools for the modding tools. Then here's the path of the base game files. Just check those, make sure they make sense. If they're not, then obviously something's gone wrong in your process somewhere. But generally speaking, it should detect them. It will know where it's going, and then it's asking me now, do I want to copy the files from the base game, or do I want to do something called system link them? Which is basically just creating a virtual link between the base game files and the ones in modding tools, which I would recommend you do that rather than copy them, just so you don't have to redo this process every time there's a game files update. It will just keep them up to date as long as the base game files are up to date. It just kind of creates a virtual link between the two areas. So I'm going to go with that second option for system link, and to do that you want to put either C if you're doing copy or S if you're doing this system link option. So I'm just going to put S on the keyboard. It's going to run through the list here. It should for you just pop straight to the end, because I've already got some of them installed. It's just telling me here that I've got them and it's asking me what I want to do. So I'm just going to overwrite those. Same with that one. And then what you should do once you get to the end of this list, the last one you should see on here is this data level Strashenko terrain pack file here. Once you get to that point, you know it's done. For whatever reason, it doesn't tell you that it's actually finished, but as long as you can see that's the last one, you know it's finished. So now that's done, you can just close out of that. And now, when you go into your data file, you should see a bunch of pack files in this process. And so these are the base game files, and like I said, the virtual links to your base game if you've done the system link process. So just be aware of any changes you make in this file. If you change the raw contents of the pack, it will change your base game file, so just be conscious when you're doing that process. In order to open these pack files, you're going to want either 7-zip or WinRAR to do so, and you can just set it as the default for it to open in, so you can open a pack, and you can see there it's opening it in 7-zip. I'll have links to both the tools in the description, so either 7-zip or WinRAR. Either work, both fine, they're both free. Take your preference. I personally just use 7-zip just because it doesn't give you pop-ups all the time. It's not as much of a pain in the ass. But yeah, take one of those tools, download it as you would any other exe, and then you can open up the pack files, just kind of give you an idea of the game structure, because let's say now I can go into objects, and I can go and explore how they set different things up. I can see the game's textures, I can extract them from there and do what I want with them afterwards and modding stuff. So that's the basics of getting the files in there. That's the very core of the tool setup for now. So that's that. Like I said, you're definitely going to need one of these two. I have 7-zip WinRAR, so make sure you get one of those. And then the next thing you're going to want to install is a text editor of some kind. Something that works better for XML, so usually I'd say VS Code or Notepad++. It's purely down to preference which one you go with. There's no necessarily one's not better than the other for this sort of job. So take your pick between one of these two, or if you've got third parties, up to you. But yeah, just pick one of these programs. I'll have links to both of these in the description. Install them, and then as long as you can get it to the point that it's running correctly, like this, my VS Code process, then you're finally set up for the next session. You just want to make sure that's working. And then the next tool you're going to need is something to be able to pack your mods with. Because when you create your own mods, you're going to go through the process, create the folder structure, the files, all that kind of stuff. But in order for it to work with the game, you will need to create a pack file again, which a pack is essentially a format for an archive that compresses the data for the game engine to work with it. There's a couple of different tools you can use, but the one I'm using, the one I would recommend you go with, is this KCD2 pack, which is made by Laughing Man from the Modding Community Discord. It's a bit more simple, just a right-click or context menu option. It makes it a bit easier to work with, less manual. So you want to go through this link in the description for his pack tool. On his GitHub page on the right-hand side where it says releases, if you go to that. And then on here, you want to go for the latest release. And you want to just check the options here. There's a couple of different versions you can go with. For the vast majority of circumstances, I would suggest you just go with the setup exe down here. That'll do a full formal install on your PC, make it the simplest way you can do it. You can take a portable version, which is basically just one you could stick out on a portable hard drive, USB, whatever, and take it between computers if that's what you want to do. But for this case, I'm going to take the pack Windows setup exe. Let that install, double click on that, and it's quite quick. It'll just run its installation process. It's popped up there, and basically that should be it done. I'm just going to test to make sure it has worked, and you can see what you should see once you get to the right process. If I go to my mods folder of my base game, I'll just pick one of my mods, and I can see this. What you should see is this option called pack mods. So if you want to test that and you haven't got your own mods yet, you can just do this to any of the person's mod you've installed. As long as it detects the correct mod manifest file inside of it, it should then give you this pack mods option to work with. So I know that's working, I know that's set up, so that's great. The next thing you're going to want, if you're going to work with any of the game's models, clothing, weapons, armor, any of that kind of stuff, is this toolkit for the Blender system. There is an official dev tool for 3ds Max and Maya, but it's only for export, it doesn't offer any import tools. So the vast majority of the community that are dealing with mods and modelling are using this tool instead. It's a tool that I currently maintain because the original creator has kind of gone missing in action. So again, link in the description to this one. Similar to the original, similar to the last one for the pack tool, what you want to do is go onto the GitHub page. On the far right hand side, go to releases, and we're just going down on the latest one. If you get lost at any point in me talking you through this installation process, there is also an explanation I've put here for the step-by-step installation process for the tools. So if you get lost, just feel free to follow that, and it gives you a very basic explanation of some of the steps in there. So I'm going to go on to releases, go on to that, and you can see here it's taking me to the latest one, and the one you want to grab is this Blender Toolkit zip file here. So I'm going to click on that. It's going to download that into my downloads. So now that I've got that, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to launch my Blender. And then in Blender, what you want to do is go to Edit and Preferences. And then on this top right corner up here, you want to click on this arrow to go down, go on Install from Disk, and then you want to go to wherever you've downloaded that file. So in my case, I'm just going to do update modified, and it'll be the latest file I've just downloaded over here. So I'm just going to double click on that. And then what you should see, it should take you to this page like this. It will automatically search down for the add-on you just installed, and it should automatically tick it as well. If it hasn't done that, just to make sure you do that so it's actually enabled at the top. Then you want to expand this, and you want to just fill out a couple of options in the preferences here so that it works correctly. The first thing to note is it automatically will tick this update checker process, which basically all that will do, whenever you run the tool, it will check for an updated version of the tool. If there is one, it'll pop up and just tell you that it's there to go and install it. If you don't want to do that and you want to just keep an old version, you can just untick that and it will stop it doing that. The next option on here is the data directory, so this needs to be to your base game data folder so that it knows where it's pulling the files from that it can work with. So to do that, I'm going to go and click on the folder icon, and I'm just going to direct it into my Steam library, Steam Apps, Common, and then look for my base game, so Kingdom Come 2 in there. Go into the data folder, and then just click accept. So you can see now it's taken that path. So make sure you do similar wherever you have it installed, as long as you're inside of the base game file, not the modding tools one. And then make sure you go into the data folder in there. And then the next option you can see in there is for the texture path. So this path is essentially just where it will dump the exported textures from. So the tool has the capability to extract textures from the game for you, convert them into a format you can work with in Blender, and it'll set it all up for you. But it needs space to do that, and obviously so that you can retrieve those textures afterwards. So this can be wherever you want it to go, and you just put it into the wherever that path you're happy with is. So in my case, I just have a folder in my little modding tools folder I keep over here called Blender Texture Output. You can call it whatever you want, it doesn't matter as long as you know where it is. So I'm going to go into that, and I'll click accept in there. So that's those preferences and setup bits done there. So now that's done, I can close that. The next thing I need to do now, if you press N on your keyboard, and you should now see on the right hand side of these two options, you should see KCD2 Toolkit, and you see the bcry exporter option. To work with these, the next thing you're going to have to do is set up a link between the plugin and the tools, so it knows where it's finding certain tools it needs to use. So if you go into the configuration section, and you should see two options here for Find RC and Find Texture RC. RC is basically a resource compiler. It's a tool that comes with the game's engine that you use to convert both the models and the textures into the format that the engine will work with afterwards. So the tool needs to know where those files are to work with it. So in order to do that, what I'm going to do, I'm going to click on Find RC. And it'll try to find it if it can. If it can't, just all you need to do is go into your Steam Apps Common or wherever you've installed the mod tools. Inside of your mod tools, like this, you should see in the tools folder that I highlighted earlier. So I'm going to go into there, and then you should see a file called RC. So if you go into there, then what you're looking for is this rc.exe file. So just double click on that. And then for the texturers, it needs to be the exact same process. Just set the same exe in there. And now it knows where those files are. It can use those to convert the tools for you. So now that's done, that should be the core setup required for the tools to work. The only other thing to highlight will be that when you first run the tools, it may prompt you to say that you need to install .NET if you don't have the right version. It'll pop up if that's the case, and if it does, make sure you install that, because if you don't, the tool will not work correctly or fail to do some of the conversions it has to do. But so now we know that's working. That's the basic setup. You can see you've got the options import and export and all that kind of stuff in there. We'll go through that in more depth in another video on Blender. But for now, that's the basic, that setup. We can have that working for the next video, one of the next videos. So I'm going to close that for now. And then the next thing we're going to need is a tool to convert the base game texture files, because essentially inside of the game, if I go to, let's say, data, let's go to objects part 3, and if I go for weapon, what you can see in here is the base game files. They are a DDS format, which some plugins under normal circumstances can open for Photoshop, GIMP, all those kind of tools. However, it's slightly different in the format they use for them, and they're what we call a streamed file. So you can see here now, it has the main file here, but it also has this .1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. All the textures in the base game will look like that, and you can't just open them. If you try, it will just, if I say if I double click it now, it will try to open it in Photoshop with my plugin, but it will fail to open because it doesn't know how to handle this process. So it will just give it an error saying it's trying to read the file, can't find the data, and it gives up. So what we need to do to get these to open and to actually work is to use one of the conversion tools available. So the one I'm going to direct you guys to use is this tool from Camzik. It's an exe based tool, and it will just take the base game files that you give it and it'll convert it into format that you can work with later on. So in order to do it, I'm going to put the link here again in the description for this Nexus Mods page for the tool. I'm going to go to Files, and then you've got two options on here. If you're not certain, go with the top option here. But if you know for certain you have .NET 9 already installed, then you can go with that lighter version. The only difference is this one has all the dependencies for it to work. The Blender Toolkit uses the same one, so if you're able to run the Blender Toolkit without getting prompted for .NET 9, then you can go with the bottom one. So all you need to do is click Manual Download. Let that do its thing, and whilst it's doing that, all I'm going to do is I'm going to go to my modding tools, and I've got a folder in here just called KCD2 Texture Exporter. Just where that's where I'm going to save it. You can call it whatever you want again, doesn't matter as long as you know where it is. So that's finished. I'm going to open that. And all I'm going to do is drag this exe, put that in there, and then all you have to do is just double click the exe. You might get a warning about protecting your PC, which is because it's an unknown program is a bit concerned about. If you get that, just click run anyway. It's a known trusted source. Multiple people in the modding community are using this tool. It's just some antiviruses are a bit fussy about the program sometimes. So I know that's working. Once this pops up, you should see it'll generate a settings XML file. That's normal. And then you get a bunch of options here, and this is now kind of the basic. All you have to do is give it a path for the input and the output of the files. It will do its job when you click convert. So as long as you know that's working, that's the main thing. We'll go over that in more depth in a future video. We actually go through taking up an example of base game texture, converting it, making a change, and then we'll do getting that back in game in the next video. So that's tool. The other thing I would suggest you get, which isn't necessarily an essential tool, it's just a nice to have tool more than anything, is the NVIDIA texture tool exporter. There's two versions of it. There's one for the desktop and there's one for the Photoshop program. Doesn't really matter to me which one you go with, down to preference. I just use the Photoshop one because it works within the Photoshop UI system. It's just a bit easier. The reason I'd say to have this is because A, it will allow your Photoshop to open up DDS files after you converted them without having to turn them into a TIFF file. But also, there are certain situations where the base game conversion tool doesn't do a very good job of certain file types, in which case you can use this tool to manually set the right presets and options you need for the file trying to save. So again, it's not essential, it's just down to preference, but if you want to use it, then just go on here, click to download. You will have to create an account for NVIDIA if you haven't already got one for the developer portal. It's just like any rig, so you just run it, and that's fairly straightforward one to go with. And then the last tool I'm going to suggest you use, which again, it's not essential, it's just very useful to have if you're getting started, is the KCD Asset Finder, which is made by Altair. Essentially, all it will do, and you can see in this preset previews here, is you set the base game path for where you're looking at, and it will allow you to search by keyword if you're trying to find, say, a model. So if you're looking for a skin file, or if you're looking for a certain XML file, etc., you can put in that keyword of what you're looking for, click search, and it will search all of the base game pack files to try to find whatever that file is you're trying to find is. So I would heavily suggest you get that, because it's a lot easier if you're trying to find something you don't know which pack it's in, and you can just go in here, type in the word, click search, and it will find it 9 times out of 10 for you. So this one's very straightforward. You just go in there, manual download, and similar to the previous tools, all you need to do is drop it somewhere. In my case, I just have it in my file here. So I'm just going to open that up. So you can see I've already got the path. All you need to do is set it to your main game folder there. And then in the search, you can just take any sort of keyword you're looking for. So let's say I'm going to say I want to find Henry, but I want to find any of his models. So I'm going to find a skin, which is basically is the type most commonly used for character models. I'll do that. If I click search, and then you can see now it's ran through all the files, and it's found multiple results. So I'm just going to click expand all. And you can see there it's found sort of child Henry model, it's found hair for Henry, and it's found his actual head there as well. So that's just an example of how that tool works quite briefly. You can choose to then export them from the tool as well, or you can just go, oh, I know where it is now, I know it's in this pack file, and then I can go and look for it inside of my data folders and know it's exactly where it's going to be. So yeah, that's that process. That's what I would consider the essential list of tools to get started modding KCD2. Thank you very much for watching the video, guys. Big shout out to the KCD2 modding community. That's obviously been a big help to myself and everybody else learning this process. Nobody really knew what was going to be coming into this. Obviously, everybody's learned together, and this is now the knowledge we're trying to share through these videos. There are certain areas that I'm still not the expert on, like doing map editor content, that kind of stuff. So we are going to be requesting that if you are a member of the community, you feel like you're happy to share your knowledge of certain areas you think you might know quite well, I want to share that with other new members to the community, please do reach out to myself or to Uriah on the modding community Discord. We're just looking for volunteers to help share your knowledge and help everybody else develop and make cool mods for the game that we all love so much. As I noted throughout the video, all the links I've mentioned will be in the description. I'll also put a link in the description to the KCD2 modding Discord, which, if there's anything throughout the video you're just not sure, and that's the best place to go and ask the questions. Everybody in there is very helpful and will kind of give you any advice on any bits you get stuck on. If you kind of jump ahead of the timeline of these videos, then again, people will be there to help you answer any questions, any concerns you might have. Yep, stay tuned, guys, for the next one, and we will see you soon.
Henry. let's drink to Henry. He gets the job done the best he can. Yeah!